like to go from a perfect pregnancy, everything was going fine, to now like my kids have less than like a 10% chance to live. Just a little background history on my health and, you know, the girls before I gave birth. According to my doctors, everything was a-okay. Everything, in their words, verbatim, was, you know, perfect. I'm a young, healthy individual. Every test they ran on me and the girls, everything was coming back great. Everything was all, I only received positive feedback. The only thing, maybe like 1 month, I had gained too much weight, and then, you know, my doctors told me to slow down on the carbs. But other than that, there was never any problems or concerns or issues that arose within my pregnancy. My due date was February 2020, and it was November 11th to be exact. Me and Josh had just, you know, got the house, and now we're moving in, we're renovating, we're painting. Well, he's painting the walls because I wasn't allowed to really do anything that involved any labor. So we're doing that. One of those days, you know, after work, we met up, we got to the house, we're trying to fix up little things. And of course, my husband, he can only take so many nights without the boomsies, so, you know. Okay, so whatever. We partook in maybe 3 minutes of physical activity. 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden, all I hear is like if you took a gallon of water and started pouring it on the floor. And I look at him and he's looking at me, and we're both looking at each other like a deer in headlights. And I'm like, don't think you did anything special. It was not that. He was like, did your water just break? And I'm like, I don't know, babe, just give me the phone, because at this point I just need to talk to my doctor. So I get to the phone, you call my doctor, and I'm like, yeah, hey doc, so, you know, me and my husband, we're partaking in, you know, some physical activity, and I see a lot of fluid coming out of me. And he's like, oh no, you know, it's okay, that's normal fluid from intercourse. So women, that's another big thing, especially when it comes to Black women and childbirth. Sometimes when you're expressing your concerns or worries to a doctor, for some reason, when it comes to just Black women in general, they kind of just push it to the side, or they don't really take you seriously. So at this point, I'm frantic, and I'm not trying to hear that it's just intercourse. I know my body. This is a lot of fluid coming out of me. And I'm literally at this point, I'm waddling to the toilet because I'm making a mess on the floor, and I'm telling him it sounds like I'm peeing, but it's literally my amniotic fluid at this point that's coming out of me in the toilet. So I'm on the phone, I'm like, doc, no, this is not fluid from intercourse. It's so much more coming out, and more just keeps coming out. And at this point, it's like has a little orange hue to it, which is telling me that there's blood in this as well. So my doctor's all the way in Park Slope. I'm all the way in Jersey. So he would tell me, do not go to any hospitals in Jersey. You get to this hospital right now. So it's the middle of the week, and 1 second, let me just check on middle. It's the middle of the week. It's like 5-6 p.m. at night. It's rush hour. So I'm rushing. Meanwhile, I told you, me and Josh met after work. So we're in some bummy attire, sweatpants and everything. So I didn't have a change of clothes with me. I'm wearing a grout fit. So gray sweatpants, gray top. And all you can see is all the fluid that was on my clothes because I had nothing to change in. It literally looked like I just jumped in a pool of water and it's just all over me. So I'm in the car, I'm cold, I'm anxious, I'm getting upset, I'm getting worried, I'm getting scared. And Josh is fumbling, trying to find the house keys to lock the doors because it's a brand new house that we just got. And he just want to make sure nobody, like comes into the house and starts stealing crap or whatever. I'm like, can we just go to the hospital? Can we worry about this later? At this point, I can tell he's getting a little frantic, but he's just trying to stay calm for my sake. So finally, whatever, he doesn't even bother to look for the keys. We get in the car, and what should have taken us an hour and some change to get to the hospital, my baby got us there in like 35 minutes. We pulled up Park Slope where the ambulance pulls up, where you're not supposed to park at all. I was like, park right here. We'll worry about moving the car later. And that's exactly what we did. So now at this point, he's helping me out of the car. I'm still literally holding in between my legs because I can still feel fluid coming out. And what's really getting me nervous at this point, as the fluid's coming out, I feel my belly getting smaller. And in my eyes, it got considerably smaller. So I went from looking 9 months pregnant to probably maybe like 4 or 5. Like I just knew this was amniotic fluid. So we get to the emergency room entrance. He's like, there's a line of like 2 or 3 people waiting to fill out an app or whatever for whatever things was going on. And I'm sitting down. Like I said, you can see the entire wet stain on my pants. And a lady that was sitting across from me, she can tell that I was pregnant and she can see all the fluid on my legs. And she was like, oh no, honey, you gotta go tell him to go in the front because you need to see a doctor. So when she said that, actually the lady behind the counter saw, I was like, oh no, we need to get you to labor and delivery now. And at this point, they're looking for a wheelchair. There's no wheelchair in sight. So Josh goes like, if I have to pick her up and carry her, you just tell me what floor I need to do that. So she's like, it's all the way on the 3rd floor. Are you sure? He was like, I don't care. So he scoops me up. We're running to an elevator. And on our way there, we happen to find a wheelchair. So thank goodness. So he sits me on a wheelchair. We go up to labor and delivery. They admit me immediately. And I remember during the car ride, I was on the phone with my mother, and she even warned me. She was like, you know, obviously there's something going on. Expect to stay there because they're not going to let you go home tonight. So already in my mind, I was getting ready that I was probably going to be there for the night. At least that's what I thought. So we get there. They have me change into the hospital gown. They put a huge giant pad on me. I'm laying down, and now they're starting some testing in labor delivery unit. So they're doing a sonogram on my stomach, and not my doctor, but a different doctor from the hospital tells me, so you lost a considerable amount of amniotic fluid. So by this point, they told me that I'm not leaving the hospital. I'm not leaving this hospital until I go into labor. And that can be when I reach 40 weeks, that can be next week, that can be tomorrow. But regardless, I'm on bed rest until I go into labor. So anyways, at this point, like I said, I'm 6.5 months pregnant, maybe not even 6.5 months. I was 25 weeks pregnant. Okay, so in 6 months range. My doctor walks in, and I will always remember this vividly. Josh is sitting by the door in a chair. I'm laying on the bed. My doctor sits at the edge of the bed. He's looking at me, and it's kind of like he doesn't even know what to say to me at this point. His face is just filled with concern and worry. He puts his hand on my leg, and then he goes, let's hope and pray that we get these babies at least to 27 weeks, because then they'll have a better chance. And and it's crazy because this is the first time. It's like I'm always like reliving the moment. That was like the scariest thing to hear. Like to go from a perfect pregnancy, everything was going fine, to now like my kids have less than like a 10% chance to live. So I remember talking to my mom, and she was like, you need to stay calm, and I understand things are overwhelming, and I understand you're scared. But if you stress yourself out, then you're gonna stress your babies out, and that's the last thing you wanna do. So you can ask anybody when they visited me at the hospital, you know, that night or the next day, they could tell you that, you know, I looked fine, or, you know, I seemed so positive, and, you know, under the circumstances, it looked like that I was doing okay. And at least I thought I tricked myself into thinking I was doing okay. But honestly, I was trying to be as positive. I was praying nonstop. I was just trying to be, in the right state of mind, because I told myself, as long as I was doing okay, then my babies would be doing okay. And my goal, I was going to make it past 30 weeks. I was going to be, if I had to, I was going to do whatever I had to and make it past 30 weeks, because my babies were going to live. Anyway, I get admitted that night. Obviously, Josh stays with me for, you know, the nights that I'm there. And between the time I was admitted to the time that, you know, they were born, I was given so many medications, you know, because I'm anemic, so I was on iron, fluid or liquid that was injected into me. I was on steroids injected into my arms so that they would help rapidly, you know, develop their lungs, because they were so underdeveloped. I was taking tons of medications and everything to help them develop as fast as they can within a short period of time. So, you know, worst case scenario, if they were born super early, they would have a living chance. So now a day has gone by. Every day they check my cervix, and when I say that is one of the most uncomfortable things to do, when they check your cervix, they literally put their entire hand into your vagina and try to see how far dilated your cervix is. So I only reached maybe 1 to 2 centimeters dilated, but I can feel that I started to have minor contractions. And as minor as they were, I mean, they sucked. I can only imagine how it'd feel if, you know, women who go all the way to like 9 centimeters. I really, like, kudos to you women. You guys are, I mean, straight up warriors. So now at this point, I'm in the second night going into the hospital, and Josh, you know, at some point he had to go home, get a change of clothes, do stuff for the house, because it was just like, you know, he wanted to do as much as he can in a couple of hours and then come back to me. So it's in the middle of the night, I want to say 3 or 4 a.m. And I'm sleeping terribly in the hospital. I haven't really gotten a good night's rest because the hospital beds suck. I don't have enough pillows. My back is hurting. I'm having contractions. I'm alone. It's just not the ideal situation. So I'm in there, and I can feel myself having contractions, because every time I have a contraction, I notice that I can't breathe as well as I was. It almost feels like somebody punched me in the gut, and I kind of lost my breath every time I had a contraction. And it seemed to be coming every 5 minutes. So the nurse practitioners, they're coming in, they're like, okay, yeah, you're having contractions. So at this point now they're giving me oxygen, because now my oxygen levels continue to dip every time I'm contracting. By 8 a.m. in the morning, before I can even open my eyes, I see 2 women, 2 doctors. They walk in, and I mean, they're lovely women, they were nice, but the news that they broke to me was like a shock of a lifetime. So she walks in and she goes, I know you don't know who I am, but it's very nice to meet you. But we have some things that we have to discuss, like, quickly. And she was like, we're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. So we want your babies to stay in as long as they can, so that they grow, they get stronger, they develop more, they mature more. But then they also run the risk of developing an infection, because I have lost so much amniotic fluid. They're basically in there in an empty sack, empty dry sack. And then she was like, and then now, or we give you a C-section right now, because every time you're having contractions and you're losing oxygen, the girls are losing oxygen. And the only way they have a standing chance at this point is if we take them out. So at this point, I'm scared. I'm in shock. I'm alone because, like I said, Josh was running around doing as much as he can before he returns to me. And now at this point, it's just, we need to take them out. So it's 8 a.m. I have anesthesiologists coming into my room with heavy accents, having me fill out paperwork and things like that. Other doctors reading me my rights. Another doctor saying, you know, we have to change you. We have to put you in surgery, you know, gown or things like that. It was just a whole, it was literally like a movie scene. So I called Josh in the midst of all the chaos, and he literally dropped what he was doing and was like, I'm on my way, babe. And like I said, he's all the way in Staten Island at this point, and he has to drive and dip and dodge through traffic to get to me, and I was going into surgery literally within the next 15 minutes. So now I'm in the operating room. It's cold. There's like 10 providers in there, surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, doctors, whoever. And I'm by myself, and they can tell I'm super scared. You know, and there was one doctor who was really sweet, and I remember him saying, just hold my hands, stay calm, we got you, we'll be with you throughout this entire, you know, process. I was like, okay. So they're giving me, I don't even think it was an epidural, I forgot what the name of it was, but they gave me 2 shots on the sides of my spinal cord, and then literally in moments I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. So they lay me down, they put the sheet up because, you know, obviously I'm getting a C-section, I can't see what they're doing down there, and then the procedure starts. So I can feel pulling, I can feel tugging. I necessarily can't feel what they're doing, but I feel a lot of pressure. And then all of a sudden, at 10:08, I hear one baby cry, and that was Meadow, baby A. Meadow was born at 10:08 a.m. and she yelled out the cutest little cry, and then whisked her to the side of the room, immediately started pumping oxygen in her nose, and then they continued to try to get Marley out. And then when Marley came out, it was 10:10 a.m. Again, she gave up a little tiny little wail, and then they whisked her off to the side. And literally, as they had already whisked, Josh walks in. He comes straight for my head, grabs my hand, kisses my hand, you know, tells me how much he loves me, superwoman, and just making me feel good. And as surreal as it was, I just couldn't wait to see my babies. I could not wait to see them. And sadly, I couldn't see them. I could barely see them. The only thing I could see was their little pink bodies being whisked off to the side of the room. Josh was able to take a few pictures, but it really wasn't, you know, the best photos, because it was like they quickly had to take them down to the NICU. So after the surgery, like I said, I didn't even get to hold them. I didn't even really get to see them, only through, you know, a photo or two that Josh had taken. And then from there, they whisked me straight into postpartum, where I was there for the next hour to recover. They gave me codeine, because at this point they sewed me back up. I'm in tremendous pain, but the codeine is kind of like inhibiting me from feeling all of that. So I'm feeling okay because of the codeine. Not codeine, I'm sorry, oxycodone. So now, you know, family's in here, they're coming in to visit, and I'm allowing my family to go see them before I can even go see them. So I had like 2 handfuls of family from, you know, my husband's side and my side that came to support us and see the babies and everything. And then finally, you know, when all the chaos died down and it was just me and Josh, finally I can go down to level 1 to go see my babies. And when I saw them, it was so surreal. It was crazy. It was crazy. I couldn't hold them. I could barely touch them. And, you know, obviously you gotta wash your hands and do all of that, but it was like they had so many tubes and wires in them, out of them, around them. Their eyes were covered with masks, and they had UV lights on them. They were tied up. It looked like a little straitjacket, but it was just like, you know, a little sack that they would lay in so that their arms wouldn't really grab onto the, you know, the wires and pull them out. And it it literally looked like they were in a lab experiment, the way that they looked. And it was scary. It was very, very, very frightening. And women, mothers or mothers to be, I highly suggest, especially if you have somebody who's in the medical field in your family, who works in the hospital sector, or just you doing your research, or even if it is finding a doula or somebody, do your research when it comes to the hospitals that you give birth in. Because I was aware that my pregnancy was going to be high risk because I have twins. I was having twins. So I made sure to look for a level 3 NICU. But you have to do more research than that. Because even though they were put into a level 3 NICU, they were the last ones to go into it. They were the first ones that were kicked out because it, went over capacity, and then they had to be transferred to an entirely different hospital that could accommodate them and their needs, because they were micro preemies. They needed so much more care they had available at, Methodist Hospital in Park Slope. So they probably only stayed at Methodist for 2 days max. And then I got the news that, there was not enough room. They needed to be transferred. It was either all the way in Manhattan, in Lexington, or all the way in Long Island and North Shore. So, I wanted parking available because parking was a huge issue at the hospital we were currently at. So I wanted good parking access, and I had family in Long Island. My father doesn't live too far from Long Island. And I was just like, you know what? If that means we're just gonna have to make that trip an hour and a half every day, 2 hours to get there, that's what we're gonna have to do. So that Friday night, they were transferred, and they gave me an option. I can stay at the hospital for an extra night, or I can leave. And I was determined to leave. And at this point, I could barely walk. I could barely get myself in and out of the bed. That's how painful it was. But I was determined to get out. I wasn't gonna let my babies get transferred and I'm over here. I was gonna suck it up and be there for my babies. So, thank God, Joshua's amazing support system. Just me being able to walk around and just being there for me emotionally and physically, it was just, I don't know what I would have done without him. They get transferred. Now they're in North Shore, and honestly, that's where the real journey began with the NICU with them. And there's probably so much more details that I'm missing, but these were the details that I felt that stuck out to me that I'll definitely remember for the rest of my life. I'm just so happy. You don't know how many times I prayed for them, their safety, for their lives, for everything. And at some point, it got really hard and it got really tough, and you just leave it in God's hands, But when I say I'm blessed, that is an understatement. And I wholeheartedly mean that. That is an understatement. I am so blessed to have my babies here, and I'm supremely proud to be their mom. I'm really happy God chose to pair these 2 babies, with me, because I love them beyond words, and it's crazy. I gotta go put this baby back to sleep. All right, bye y'all.